All right, great. I am going to record the class with your permission, only because not everybody might be able to attend, and I still want everybody to have the opportunity to catch the lecture. And so today's topic is business entities, and it's I have to say, this is my I'm going to be honest. I put my cards out there. This is kind of my least favorite. This is the most technical of the various of the modules, of the various areas of law we're looking at. Up to now, I've been teaching the law as a kind of the way Erasmus of Rotterdam, one of my heroes, he was this, and today he's a saint, but back in the day, he was a scholar who would travel all over Europe. This is during the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation. He'd be discussing all kinds of issues of religion and ethics and science and natural philosophy, as it was called back then, with just anybody. And he would teach students from all over the world and from all over Western Europe. And one of the things about Erasmus is that he would talk about the boni literae, good learning. So that's why I've been focusing on ideas of due process, for example, and the burden of proof. I've been focusing on the main sources of law and law and our common law tradition, contracts, property, and torts. But here I want to talk about business entities, because although this is a little bit technical, it's actually really, really important, because without this area of law, we wouldn't have capital markets. And without capital markets or secondary markets where people can buy and sell stock, we probably wouldn't have all of the innovations and products and services, and we wouldn't have global capitalism, basically. Now, that said, I bet for a lot of people that might be a great thing. Maybe global capitalism is terrible, and it's there's been both arguments in favor of capitalism and arguments against capitalism. And I want you just to keep an open mind. In our last class, in the next module, we'll talk about corporate governance and corporate social responsibility, and what are the ethical duties, if any, that a private business firm owes to the world, or owes to society, or owes to their country. So, and I think that's actually the most important topic, and that's why I saved it for last. That's also the most interesting. And we'll see there's actually a wide spectrum of views, and I'll teach it again more as a liberal art, and so that the student can come to his or her own informed and well-reasoned conclusion. You'll notice from all my discussion posts, I don't care what your answer is. I just care that it's in good faith and well-reasoned, like Erasmus of Rotterdam. That's the whole thing. As long as you can make an argument and think about something and defend it, that's great. That's what my job is as a professor. But here I will have to get a little bit technical. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk. Let me introduce you the module of for this class. I think I have it open. Let me see where it is. Let me just jump into the homepage of the course. I have Facebook stock price up, and I'll show you why later. I have a new. I just love the thing about Tiger King that I find so. I just find it beautiful. I just find the whole idea of tigers and lions and panthers and cheetahs, and then all of the really colorful assortment of people who are surrounded by these beautiful exotic animals. I'm so fascinated by this, and but let's jump into today's module. And the thing is, by the way, I put the question here: what type of business entity is Exotics Zoo? And so we're going to actually see. You'll see this in the module. Now, I do want to point out a few things about the module. I have. I'll probably update the theme song now that we're going with Will Smith. I think I have Justin Timberlake in there. But with the videos, what I've done here is I'm still working on the podcast, because this is actually a new module. I used to do this as part of corporate governance, but this is so important. I needed to do this separately. As I was consulting notes with other business law professors across the country, I realized that I want to give you the same education that other students in other like at Duke and University of Texas and at Harvard, these other awesome schools. I want you to get the same education they're getting. So what I've done here is I have some videos, and I do here, though, I kind of recommend, because this can get kind of technical, This blog post over here that I posted has really all the information. That's probably the fastest, most efficient way of just learning about business entities. And I'm going to talk about a lot of that stuff right now. Also, I still have to, I'm gonna go to campus tomorrow to record the podcast episode. They're doing a remodel in the faculty media center, so I haven't been able to record the podcast because I just don't have the equipment here at home. So the sound equipment to have a high quality podcast. So I'll be posting that too as well. What I did want to show you is just some actual examples of limited liability companies. For example, you'll see here the Oklahoma Secretary of State. And you're going, wait, Oklahoma has a Secretary of State? I thought Anthony Blinken or Mike Pompeo, or Madeleine Albright, may she rest in peace. She died a few days ago. She was Clinton's Secretary of State. Yes, every state also has a Secretary of State. Every state in our country, in the United States, has a Department of State. And the reason why is because you have to remember, we were talking about the Constitution and our sources of law. We are a federal system. I talked about federalism, when we're talking about the Big Cat Public Safety Act, for example. And what federalism means is that we have a dual sovereign. Each of the 50 states is technically a separate legal entity from the government in Washington, D.C. And although the government in Washington, D.C., under the Constitution, the president, the Article 2 branch of government, has exclusive authority over foreign relations, right? The states still maintain their Department of States, and the state Department of States, if you will. Sorry, I had to repeat the word state twice, but the local Department of States, if you will, of each state, that's where you register your company, either as a limited liability company or as a corporation, generally speaking, either for-profit or nonprofit. So Joe's LLC is now defunct, and I'll explain why a little bit later on in this class. But you can see that this is the sort of like the official certification by the Department of State and the Secretary of State of Oklahoma that of the name of Joe Exotics. You see it here with my cursor, the Greater Wynnewood Development Group. Joe Exotic Zoo used to be called the GW Wynnewood Exotic Animal Park. And so this was the entity that ended up with the ownership interest in Joe Exotic Zoo. And I'll tell you what happened and why it is you can't access it anymore. We don't actually have access to that document. Because I can't show you the articles of organization of Joe Exotic Zoo, let me show you Facebook's articles of organization when they just started out as a company. And so this first page is just the cover page when it was filed on April 13th, actually almost exactly 18 years ago. We're March 24th, but this was April 13th. The date stamp is over here, 2004. And this is just the cover page. The actual filing is just this one-page document over here. What's really interesting is really easy, by the way, to LLC. If you notice, for example, in Florida, back in 2004, and I believe this hasn't changed, it's $155 for the filing. And and what you have to do is you have to list the name of your limited liability company, the location of the office, who your registered agent is. And the reason for that is if the company is ever sued, because the owners are getting limited liability. If the company is sued, I have to be able to look up, at the Department of State, who do I give a copy of to? Who do I serve the summons to? And you can serve that to the registered agent. Limited liability companies only have a limited duration of 40 years. But if you think about it, that's plenty of time. You can just refile after the 40 years are over. That's one important difference with corporations. Corporations have perpetual existence. Article 5, this is probably the most important and interesting article of the Facebook's original articles of organization. Here's where you list the managers or members, the owners. The difference between a manager and a member is a passive investor or owner of the limited liability company, whereas a manager is an owner who's actually making day-to-day decisions for the company or on behalf of the company. But they all have the status of owners. And here you'll see that in addition to Mark Zuckerberg and Eduardo Saverin, Moskowitz is listed as well. And what's really interesting about Dustin Moskowitz is that he was born in Gainesville, and he grew up in Ocala. He's from Central Florida, and it's probably the reason why. And I forgot to mention this, right? This LLC is registered in Florida. That's the other thing I want you to know about today's class. It doesn't matter what type of business entity you decide to be, whether it's a limited liability company or a partnership or a corporation or whatever. You have to, if you're going to register, you have to pick one of the 50 states. All business entities are creatures of state law. That's a very important point, because that means they are first and foremost regulated by the state in which they're registered. They may also be regulated by the states in which they're doing business and by the federal government if they're in an industry that's regulated by the feds. But the main thing is your business entity is a creature of state law. And each state then has the authority to register corporations and LLCs. Now, the other thing I've included in here, artifacts, is some examples of a corporation. The main difference, this is the articles of incorporation of Big Cat Rescue. Technically, that's a nonprofit, so they don't have shareholders. So what I want to do is I want to show you the revised articles of incorporation of Facebook. Now they're called Meta platforms. And what you're going to see here is that while Big Cat Rescue and the original Facebook were Florida companies, Facebook is now registered in Delaware. And that's how we're going to end today's class by, I'll explain to you why it is most of the big companies, Fortune 500 companies in the world, not just in the United States, but in the world, multinationals, why so many of them prefer Delaware, even though they could pick any one of the 50 states or any one of the 180 family of nations. Delaware, the state of Delaware, that tiny little state, is a very popular state to register business from. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is just jump into, now, because of this new format, I do have the lectures and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is, we have to do an activity. So I have a survey that I had already put the link in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the module. I'm going to go into the survey, and let's just go over those survey results. And in going over the survey results, I'll highlight the main things I want you to know about business entities and explain why this is so important. At the end of today's class, I'll talk about the quiz a little bit, and then I'll talk about the last part of the final project. So let's do the survey first, because otherwise, this is what's going to take up the most time. I have survey statistics here. Now, if you haven't done it, you can still do it. It will be open until tomorrow. Technically, the surveys remain open during the week in which we have class, because the idea of the surveys are supposed to be done during class. I'm flexible, if you class, there could be any number of reasons, etc. But that's why it's a shorter deadline for the survey. So let's go to our first question here. And the whole purpose of this question was just to introduce you to the main forms of doing business. Now, there are many other methods of doing business, but these are the big four. You know what I mean? These are really the most common. Now, what I'm asking here, well, okay, of these common forms of doing business, which is the most common, or the most common? And what I was really flabbergasted here is that, and look at our sample size, it's pretty large. Here we have 420 participants, is over half the class. It's sole proprietorship. So the class basically got this right. It's 49%, close to half. Now, by the way, you get full credit however you answer the survey. This is a graded survey, so you get points. I just want you to have fun with it. But I was really impressed that, and it turns out the reason why sole proprietorships are so popular is because I wouldn't be surprised if over half our class is half of you are technically sole proprietors. If you've ever sold something on eBay, or conducted a yard sale, or as a kid a lemonade stand, or if you've ever bought or sold anything with a commercial motivation, technically you own and operate your own business. Now maybe the business is only for a day, like a yard sale or lemonade stand. Maybe the business is more long term. Maybe you're a third-party vendor on Amazon, right? Even though it's just you. On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. There's a famous meme, you know what I mean? You could just be one person, but you're a third-party vendor on Amazon, or you're a vendor on eBay. You are a sole proprietor unless you register. And here's the deal, and this goes to my second survey. And by the way, that's why there's no paperwork. There's no paperwork. You don't have to ask permission. This is why they say that America is a system of free enterprise, because you don't have to ask anyone's permission to go into business. You don't have to be, you know what I mean? That's not how it used to be. It used to be, you had to be well connected. You had to get a charter or a license, and for some businesses that are regulated, right, like maybe the sale of alcohol, cannabis, now that's become legalized, other, casinos and gambling operations. But, hey, you know what? If you want to go into business, you just go into, there's no paperwork required. So that's why the sole proprietorship is the most common form of business. So I remember I grew up in Los Angeles, the city of angels. And it's still one of my favorite cities in the world, just because I was growing up as a kid, and before diversity became fashionable, Los Angeles was one of the most, well, maybe New York City is the most diverse city, but I'm from the West Coast. Los Angeles was such an amazing city, and I remember I would go to MacArthur Park, and I would go, and I would see people selling cassettes, and bootleg CDs, those were sole proprietors, right? On the, or people selling, horchata, a very popular drink, from Mexico that's very popular in Los Angeles, just people are selling, elotes, which are the Mexican style corn, those are sole proprietors most likely, or the taco truck, et cetera, the original taco truck from LA, so it's like, I was so lucky to grow up there and to be surrounded by just some of the most wonderful people in the world, doing so many cool and colorful things. As growing up as a kid, that had a big influence on me. It's like, wow, it's like, the world is a much larger place than where I'm an only child, so I didn't, I was a little bit sheltered. But here's the problem with the sole proprietorship. And here, is it true or false? If you're the owner, you're personally liable for all of the business's debts, liabilities, and obligations. And that's not only true, it's always true. The courts will decide if you're at fault or not, but the problem with sole proprietorship is that there's no separation, legal distinction between the owner and the business. The owner is the business, and the business is the owner. So if the business gets sued, it's really the owner getting sued, and if you're having success and you're making money and you get sued because somebody got injured or somebody is not happy with the quality of the product, or for whatever reason, now you are personally on the hook. So sole proprietorships are a mix of good and bad. The good is that you don't need anybody's permission to go into business. We're a free country and you can do whatever the heck you want, as long as your activity is legal, right? But you can go into business for yourself. The bad is if you get sued, you are looking at a possible, you may have to pay out of your own pocket, and there goes all the money you've made, all the hard work you've done. So, what about partnerships? Partnerships, what I love about partnerships, I used to teach Roman law when I was at the Catholic University, and Roman law, ancient law, and the law of Rome is the most sophisticated of the ancient law. The partnership actually originates in Roman law. Before there was sole proprietorship, before there was corporations or limited liability companies, there were partnerships. And the thing about Roman law that's so amazing is, think of like today, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, probably the most famous partners of all time. Now, eventually Apple is going to become a Delaware corporation. I'm sorry, they're actually a California corporation, one of the few big companies that are not in Delaware. But, Sir Brin and Larry Page, the Google guys, they began as partners when they were computer science students at Stanford. Bill Gates and Paul Allen, when they started Microsoft, that was a partnership. And of course, famously, Facebook. Dustin Moskovitz Eduardo Saverin and Mark Zuckerberg. They were all partners, before they registered in either in Florida or then later in Delaware. So partnership, and there's the definition. It's basically a sole proprietorship with two or more people, right? It's two or more people in business money. And legally speaking, now ideally, if you are a partner in a partnership, you want the partnership agreement to be in writing, but partnerships agreements don't need to be in writing. That could lead to a lot of disputes later. If there's a dispute among the partners, they should be in writing ideally. But here's the thing. Is a partnership a separate legal entity? And again, I'm really amazed most of the class got this right. No. A partnership technically is not separate from the individual partners who own the partnership. What this means as a practical matter, it means that not only is every partner liable for all of the debts and obligations and liabilities of the partnership, technically speaking, since there's no legal separation between the partnership and the partners, you as a partner are also liable for all the debts, obligations, and liabilities of your fellow partners. You are, in essence, your partner's keeper, your brother's keeper in the partnership context, which is a huge disadvantage, because now you could be sued not only for the stuff that you've done, as a partner, you could be sued for the decisions your fellow partners have made in connection with the partnership. And so that's kind of like a double whammy. And so this is why we have now limited liability companies and corporations. So what I want to do in the last part here is talk about the similarities and differences. Here, let's focus on LLCs first. Can there be both single member and multi-members? Again, I'm amazed. Like this stuff I didn't know until, admittedly, well, you know what, now, when I was in law school, LLCs did exist, but I didn't know any of this stuff, you know what I mean? Because my professor is focused on corporations, but LLCs have turned out to be very popular. And yes, the class is right. If you're a sole proprietor, you can register your business as a single member limited liability company. And if you are in a partnership with one or two or more other people, you can re-register your partnership as a limited liability company with a multi-member, multi-manager, LLC. So it's LLCs are super flexible in that it can have one or more owners, and it's a very simple filing statement. It's just that one-page filing statement that I showed you, and a very reasonable fee of $155. Now you do have to file an annual report every year, every 12 months, after your initial filing, but that's also a reasonable statement of assets and liabilities, of the company. So it's and notice, right, the advantage is that now the owners of the LLC, whether they're managers or members, whatever you want to call them, whether they're making decisions or just passive investors, they all get limited liability. That means if the company gets sued, the owners are not being sued, just the company is being sued. And that is a very important advantage, because it's the example I like to give is I like to play poker. So when I go to the Hard Rock Cafe or the Hard Rock, Seminole Hard Rock Casino, I'm going to walk in with just, small stakes, $100 in my pocket, and I'm not going to bet more than that, because if I win or lose, I'm not going to bet more than my initial $100 stake. Probably what's going to happen more times than not, I'm going to lose my $100 stake. But guess what? The rest of my money in my pocket, I still get to keep, That's what a limited liability company allows you. Your company might get sued and the company might end up folding, going bankrupt because of the lawsuit, or, owing a lot of money to creditors, stuff like that. But the owners are off the hook, unless they've signed a personal guarantee or something like that, The main difference with a corporation is that a corporation gets to issue shares. The other difference is that some corporations are privately held while corporations are publicly traded. So SpaceX, what I'm amazed here is that the class, like 90%, this is crazy. I didn't know this, And so I thought I was going to trick a bunch of people. I ended up tricking myself. This is right. SpaceX is a privately held company. That means that the shares of SpaceX, or the stock, certificates of SpaceX, are not publicly traded on the NASDAQ or the big board or the New York Stock Exchange, So SpaceX, the shareholders there, and that's the main difference. If it's a privately held company, there's a restriction on who can buy and sell the shares. If you're a publicly traded company, that means your shares, your common shares, are listed on the big board on the New York Stock Exchange or on the NASDAQ, if it's a technology company. And therefore, any member of the public, as long as you have the money, you can go to Charles Schwab or wherever, E-Trade, and you can buy the stock yourself, and you can be an owner in that company. So now here's something very important between privately held companies and publicly traded. If you are a publicly traded company, then and now I'll just tell you, you don't need to know this for this class. This is for my advanced topics class, but I just want to be complete. In a publicly traded company, publicly traded companies have to comply with the 1933 and 1934 Securities and Exchange Commission Acts. And what those laws do is they require all companies that are publicly traded, they have to file annual and quarterly disclosures, annual and quarterly reports. And the thing about it is, it's so much information that you have to disclose. You have to hire a bunch of lawyers and accountants, if you're a big company, to disclose all the information that the law requires you to disclose to the public. So accountants will be working on the certified financial statements. Lawyers will be working on, these are the lawsuits that the companies are facing. These are the other legal disclosures we are required to make. No, this is a trade secret, so we don't have to disclose that. The lawyers will be making those calls. Now, the thing about it is that the 1934 Act in particular it says that if there's any material misstatement of fact in the annual report or in the quarterly disclosures, or in the prospectus when the company goes public, the company can be sued for fraud. Now, I talk about fraud lawsuits and all that stuff in my advanced topics course. I'm not going to go into that here, because actually, what is a material misstatement of fact is actually a very complicated legal question, because opinions are not covered by this Rule 10b-5 that I'm telling you about, material misstatement of fact. Also, the rule for when an omission, failure to disclose relevant information, when does that constitute fraud? Those rules are very, 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 very contested and very nuanced. So I talk about those kind of, securities litigation. It's what I used to practice. I used to practice securities regulation when I was at the McConnell Valdez law firm. We represented a big underwriter, UBS, and UBS was getting, I won't get into all the details, but this is what I used to do, along with Procter and Gamble, which was our other big client. And I got to do a lot of the IP work with them. So I got, I really love securities regulation. These were my favorite classes in law school. But anyways, so a privately traded, SpaceX is a privately held company. That means Elon Musk and a few of his, associates own most of the, the stock in SpaceX, and there are restrictions to who they can sell to, Now, most privately held companies are usually owned by family members, and the family members, the shareholders, they're the ones who are the members of the board of that company. And they're the ones that generally appoint themselves as CEO, CFO, whatever the corporate officers of the company are. But guess what? Even though the shareholders are running their own company, or like Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk is the main shareholder in SpaceX. But guess what? Because SpaceX is a registered Delaware corporation, although, of whatever state it had chosen, Elon Musk has limited legal liability. SpaceX could get sued, but Elon Musk cannot get sued personally. You know what I mean? Now, there is an important exception that I do want to, before I do the end of the class, as to why it is Elon Musk and so many others prefer Delaware. There is an important exception in which both privately held companies and publicly traded corporations, and in which LLCs, owners, lose their limited liability protection. And what I'm going to do is I'll end the screen share just so I can emphasize how important this is. Because think about it, right? You've just registered your company thinking that, okay, I'm a shareholder or I'm an LLC. I'm good. I can't be sued unless I sign a personal guarantee or something like that. but I can't be sued by a stranger. Only my company can be sued. There's two fundamental exceptions to this. One exception is, um, and God, I'm getting this in the reverse order, but one exception is commingling. For example, this is very common in single member LLCs. That is to say, an LLC that's just owned by one business owner, right? The temptation is I have the same set of financial books, for the LLC and for my own personal accounts if I own the LLC. No, 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 no. If you do that, if you commingle the assets of the accounts of the company with your own accounts, you're going to lose limited liability protection. What this means in practice is that even if you're a single member LLC, and this is true of multi-member LLCs as well, the limited liability company has to have its own separate bank account. And any money generated by the LLC has to be paid into that account. And any money that the company pays out or owes to suppliers or to customers or whatever, has to be paid to LLC's bank account. You cannot mix the personal banking account and financial records of the owners or owner, in the case of a single member entity, with the business records and financial records and bank accounts of the LLC. There's a very, very common mistake, that small LLC owners may do. If you want limited legal liability protection, you have to do a proper filing and pay the fee, and then you have to make sure that the bank accounts are all separate, that of the LLC and those of the owners. Now, the other exception is Joe Exotic. It's what you saw in season 2 of Tiger King. There's so much things going on in Tiger King that, Professor, what the hell are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about that scene where Harold and Carole Baskin take over Joe Exotic's zoo. And you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, how the heck did the court say that the Carole Baskin, and Harold Baskin, Joe Exotic's arch enemies, how is it that they can take over the zoo? Joe Exotic has already been criminally punished for the murder for hire plot. He was, alleged to have been involved in. The civil action, he settled out of court, and the court ratified that judgment. Okay, Joe, you're going to have to pay $1 million, to Miss Carole, to Big Cat Rescue for the trademark infringement. How did Carole Baskin end up with this guy's zoo? Well, what happened was, Joe Exotic, and this is the other exception. If you create a corporation or an LLC to defraud your creditors, to perpetuate, a fraudulent transaction, then the court will disregard your legal liability, limited liability protection. So what happened, for example, in Tiger King in real life, is Joe created called the Greater Wynnewood Development Group. The name of his zoo, though, is actually the GW Wynnewood Exotic Animal Park. What happened is that Joe Exotic created a new company called the Greater Wynnewood Development Group. Had that company, he listed as the member and manager of that company, his mom, Jeff Lowe, all these other associates of his, and then he transferred his ownership in the zoo, in the Exotic Animal LLC that he had before that. He transferred that to this new entity, the Greater Wynnewood. So that way, if Carole Baskin's creditors, collector comes knocking on the door of Greater Wynnewood, they're going to see, wait, Greater Wynnewood is not owned by Joe Exotic at all. It's owned by these other people. But when the court, when Carole Baskin brought that to the court's attention, or when the lawyers brought that to the court's attention, the court said, oh, the purpose of this Greater Wynnewood Development Group is just to defraud, this court's final judgment, which is based on a settlement that Joe Exotic himself had agreed to. So guess what we're going to do? We're not only going to disregard the corporate form, we're not only going to make Joe Exotic now personally liable for those $1 million, we're actually going to go above and beyond that, because Joe Exotic's in jail. He doesn't have $1 million. So Joe, we're gonna, sorry, your zoo now belongs to Carole Baskin, and Carole Baskin gets to sell it, and if she gets less than $1 million for that zoo property, you still have to pay the difference plus interest. So that's what happened to Joe Exotic. He really got, I don't want to say railroaded, because you could say he kind of brought this on himself. He created this business entity to perpetuate a fraud, on the court, and that's why he lost his zoo. The last thing I want to talk about, let's do the last survey question. What is it about Delaware? Let's see what the class thought here. And here I must say, is it true? I have to, again, 80% is crazy number. Everybody got it right. 80% got it right. All of these companies I'm showing you here are all Delaware corporations. And look at that. DuPont is actually from Delaware. The DuPont family that set up that corporation, they're actually from Delaware. But all the other ones, Coca-Cola, that's in Atlanta, they're registered in Delaware. Bank of America, their headquarters are in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're registered in Delaware. Ford and General Motors, right? You think of Detroit, Michigan. No, they're registered in Delaware. Facebook, of course, is registered in Delaware, as I showed you. Now, before they were in Florida, but now they're in Delaware. I could go on and on. The Hershey's chocolate company, they're not registered in Pennsylvania, even though they're located in Hershey, Pennsylvania. They're actually registered in Delaware. The Levi's, the company that makes those famous jeans, they started out in San Francisco, but they're registered in Delaware. So I could go on and on. Goldman Sachs, big New York City investment bank, blue chip, if there ever was one. Delaware. I could go on and on, all the companies you see there. So what it is about Delaware is that's so special that Delaware has this. This is why the law is so important. Remember what I told you earlier? A corporation or an LLC, even a partnership and a sole proprietorship, all of these business entities are creatures of state law. Now, if you want to register your business in order to get the protection of limited legal liability, you got to register, but you have to pick one of the 50 states. Most people, and for most purposes, like if you're from Florida, just register in Florida. Don't make it that complicated, you know what I mean? But even before the internet, even before it was easy to register in a different state, all these big companies would go to Delaware. What was it about Delaware? Well, the main thing about Delaware that's so special is the Delaware Court of Chancery. It's a specialized court designed to has jurisdiction over all Delaware business entities, business entities that are registered in Delaware. And the Chancery Court then has developed literally not years, not decades, centuries of expertise applying the general, corporation law of Delaware. Now, so this is what's kind of special about Delaware. All the other states have general corporation laws. In fact, I might add, most corporation laws, they basically just plagiarize the Delaware law, But Delaware is the one state that has a special business court, that is very fast, very efficient, very professional, and their decisions are very influential. When I was at Yale taking business associations and securities regulation with Judge Winter from the Southern District of New York, and later he was appointed to the Second Circuit by President Reagan, or I should say before I went to law school, he was appointed by President Reagan to the Second Circuit. Let me tell you something about it. 90% of the cases we study would be from Delaware. And here's the other reason why that's so important. Delaware developed something called the Delaware courts, the Chancery Court, developed something called, I forgot to say, there's no juries in this court. It's all decided by the chancellor, who's the judge. It's just part of the historical tradition. I'm not going to go into that now. That has to do more with this is because this court existed before the Revolution, before 1776, and so the thing about it is that this court, the chancellors have developed a rule called the business judgment rule. And what this rule says is that if you're a disgruntled shareholder and you sue your company, you sue your board of directors, or you sue your CEO for breaching their fiduciary duties to the company. You see, I have to understand that when you work for a company, when you work for somebody else, the common law imposes on you a fiduciary duty, which means you always have to act in the best interest of the company you work for. So if somebody tries to sue a company alleging that, They did not, the board of directors or the CEO or whatever other corporate officer did not act in the best interest of the corporation or the LLC, as the case may be. Guess what? Guess what? The Delaware courts have developed a rule that says, you know what? As long as the company exercised a reasonable business judgment, we're not going to second guess the decisions of the business people, you know. And in other words, specifically, the Delaware courts presume that when a board of directors makes a decision or when a CEO makes a decision, they are making that decision in good faith and that they're consulting all the relevant information or all the information relevant to that decision. In other words, if you want to sue a Delaware corporation, it's up to you, or up to your lawyer, I should say, to prove that the CEO or the board of directors acted in bad faith and did not consult all the relevant sources of information, you know. And that's very hard to prove, you know. So basically, when you register in Delaware, what you're doing is you're buying an insurance policy. What you're doing is you're basically buying a set of law, a law that's been interpreted by the Chancery Court in a very pro-business, you know, friendly business environment. You're really buying a lot of protection, you know, for the inevitable lawsuit that's going to come. That's why Delaware is so popular, because of the business judgment rule that the Delaware courts, especially specifically the Chancery Court that has jurisdiction over Delaware, you know, corporation law, has developed, you know, over a long period of time. Let me just say something that's really special also about a Delaware corporation, any corporation. When you register in Delaware, but let's say you're sued in France, or let's say you're sued in California, or you're sued here in Florida, guess what? The Florida, California, and French courts, they have to apply Delaware law as interpreted by the Delaware Chancery Court to the corporation, because the corporation is a citizen of Delaware. And so the idea is that you apply, and this actually goes back to Roman law principles, you know, you apply the law to where the person was born. In this case, we're talking about an artificial person, and the artificial person technically is born when the company is registered, and it has to be registered in one of the 50 states. Once you pick a state, then that law applies to the company, regardless of where the company is located or where the company is sued. And so this is great. If you're a big company, that means you're doing business all over the country, all over the world. And that means also you're going to be sued, you know, you're going to be sued, you know, and not just by John Morgan or by Dan Newland. It's probably and the John Morgan of Paris is, you know, whoever the John Morgan of California is, you know, you're going to be sued in a lot of different places. And now you have a little bit of protection, because now the courts will apply, okay, we have to apply Delaware law as interpreted by the Chancery Court. So the big companies, you know, who face potential big litigation lawsuits, high stakes, they do prefer Delaware because it gives them this built-in advantage, you know, with this business judgment rule. You know, the idea, I think about it, right? You're a business person. You don't want a court second guessing your decision if in fact you did act in good faith, and if in fact you did consult all the relevant information, you know, relevant to that decision you made. That's why I say it's a very pro-business or business-friendly legal environment there in Delaware. And that's Delaware's not comparative advantage, that's their absolute advantage. Most Fortune 500 companies are registered in Delaware. Not all, but most. All right, with that, what I want to do is say a couple of things about the short quiz that we have left, and the last part of the final project. Also, feel free to put your questions in the chat. As my I see my TA is still in the house, and she knows all about it. She helped me grade these last semester. Also, after I dismiss the class, I'll stay on for any questions, comments, or concerns as well, because I want to know what your concerns are so that I can fix them if if there's a blind spot in my assignment and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and do one last screen share, and I'll go back into the modules in here. The quiz, I'm not going to open the quiz because the quiz is still live. Let's see, where's the module in here? But you'll notice there's a short quiz, and the quiz will stay open until the next module, you know? So they'll stay open for 2 weeks. It'll stay open until, I think it's Friday, April 1st. Where's the quiz in here? Yeah, it's a short quiz. It's each question is 5 points, and so it's based on chapters 13, 14, and 15 of the textbook. But if you're still in the Zoom, the things I talked about today and the blog post up here, will be very helpful for you responding to the quiz, but it is open book. So if you need to look something up, you can find it. Chapter 13 deals with sole proprietorships. Chapter 14 deals with limited liability companies and partnerships. And then chapter 15 deals with private and publicly traded corporations. So that's just to ratify, because not everybody actually, since I'm making this optional, attendance optional, not everybody is going to watch the video or attend the class. So I want to make sure everybody, is tested on business entities. Finally, and this I'll do a screen share here for the final project. Now, the final project, you'll notice it is small groups. And the reason why this part of the final project, the last part of the final project, is going to be small groups is because technically, I'm going to get fired if I don't do that. That's the bottom line. Technically, we're supposed to be doing group activities in this format. It's called RA, reduced seating, or I forgot, adaptive learning, something like that. It's but the point of it, we're supposed to be doing group assignments. So instead of giving you a final exam, I still don't feel comfortable with the testing center, because although thankfully all the COVID numbers are declining, there has been a slight uptick, in certain jurisdictions. And so we want to let's just play it safe, let's not change the rules in the middle of the semester. So instead of a final exam, I'm going to give you a final project, and I'm going to assign you randomly. I've already assigned you randomly into a 3-person group. Know what group you're in, or I don't know who the other members of your group are, but Canvas has already, again, randomly, I've chose the random function here because there's too many people for me to, I don't individually know, has randomly selected a group leader. Now I will be if you don't know what group you're in, I'm going to find out. Apparently I thought it was a easier way of looking it up, but I'm actually going to visit the Center for Distributed Learning tomorrow when I'm back on campus, and I'm going to ask them, and I'll share those. I'll post an announcement tomorrow on how it is you look up what group you're in. You know what I mean? So that if you want to reach out, not wait for the group leader. I'm gonna figure out some of those logistics, because I want to make sure everybody does well. Now the final project itself has 9 parts to it, and you notice there's 3 members per group, so you can easily divide this into each person can do 3 different parts of the final project. Part 1 is actually the easiest part. It's just a cover page where you take either a Zoom screenshot, like I did of the class, or you want to just post your profile pictures or whatever. But personalize your group project with a group picture, or individual, or pictures of individual pictures of the members of the groups. Just because when we grade it, if I see your face, I'm gonna, if I see your picture, I'm like, it just humanizes you, and I know who you are. If I ever run into you, that kind of thing, you always want to humanize yourself. You always want to humanize yourself, and so that's the purpose there. Part 2 is you're going to select a big company. Now, because this is a group project, probably the individual members of the group probably selected different companies for the first part of the project. So here I want you to select either a Fortune 100 or Fortune 500. You want to pick a big company. And I don't care wherever in the world the company is located. I don't care. It could be anywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. But the reason why you want to pick a big company is that it makes your research a lot easier, because there's probably going to be a Wikipedia. Probably the company has its own website. And also, I want you to try to apply for a job at that company. I don't care if you're a finance major, a real estate, accounting, management. All the big companies, all the Fortune 500 companies have a finance department, have an accounting department. Why not? Imagine sending your resume and you attach it with your group project, and boom, you're sending a signal that hey, a lot about this company, maybe even more than the person who's interviewing you. So or who's deciding whether to interview you. So I kind of want you to start thinking about whether you interview at that company or not, or whether whatever you decide to do later in life. These are the important things that, from a legal perspective, you should be keeping in mind. Now, part 3 is you'll tell me, this is however the company is structured, you'll just tell me who is the CEO, who's the or the president, whatever they call it. But generally it's going to be, if it's Fortune 100, it's going to be a publicly traded corporation, and it's going to have a CEO. And you're also going to tell me what the salary is. And I want you to do that because I want you to see the obscene amounts of money these CEOs make. Now, say obscene, half in jest. Economists would say no, CEOs are actually underpaid. They should be getting paid a lot more if increasing the value of the company. Now, okay, my rebuttal to that is, okay, well, you're like Mark Zuckerberg and your company is losing value. You should get a pay cut as well, right? But that you never see that happen. But that said, we'll talk about corporate governance. We'll talk about corporate business ethics in the next module, and we'll talk about there is a federal law that, although it doesn't regulate federal CEO salaries, it does require that CEO salaries be disclosed. The ratio from the lowest paid employee of the company up to the CEO. So I just want you to know that if you're going to go into business, your goal should be to be the CEO. That's the they make so much. That should be, in my opinion, that should be your goal, because yeah, you may not make it, but if you don't try, you're definitely not going to make it. You know what I mean? And what I love about UCF is that it's the most, even before diversity became fashionable, it was always the most diverse, forward-looking, most opportunity providing institution, and one of the most in the country. And so I would love to see corporate America look more like UCF. You know what I mean? And or more like Los Angeles, where I grew up. It's just like so that's why I want you to aspire to the highest possible levels. And then you'll tell me if the company has a chief legal officer or not. Or companies are having on their board of directors and other management teams a lawyer, for the reasons you can see the rest of this report. So part 4 is exactly what we talked about today. What type of business entity is your company? Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be a publicly traded corporation, registered in Delaware. But, what year was it registered? Those kind of things. Again, the bigger the company, all that information is publicly available. It's corporate history. Part 5, and if you need any help, email us, and I'll point you in the right direction. I want you to do well. Notice, if you get all this done by April 15th, you'll get full credit. I'll keep it open until the last day of the semester, which is April 25. But if you submit it early, I'll give you full credit if you get it all done. Because I want to be able to have so many of these. I want to be able to grade them so I can get my grades in by the deadline. I think it's May 3rd or whatever it is. So I want to, that's why I want to start grading these on April 15th. Okay, the next part here, part 5, is you'll tell me what is the single most important law. It could be an existing piece of legislation, or it could be like the Big Cat Public Safety Act, a proposed piece of legislation that some member of Congress wants to get approved. What is the most important law that applies to that company? Clearly, this is not like the CEO question or the business entity question, right? There's no right answer here, right? It's going to depend on what type of industry the business is in, and what type of goods and services the business is selling, right? And what's going on in the political environment. This is just to show you how business and politics can interact, right? Companies have to comply with laws, but laws get enacted by legislators, people who are elected by the people. So that's part 5. Part 6 is going to be what we normally think about when we think of legal risk, as litigation risk. Here you're just going to tell me what is the single biggest legal threat in terms of being sued, that company faces. Now, I'm very flexible here. It could be a case in the past that the company was sued and either won or lost. It could be a case that's ongoing right now in the present that the company is fighting it out, or it could even be a possible litigation risk in the future, a lawsuit that could happen in the future. You just tell me, what you think is the biggest litigation risk of the company is facing. I'll give you lots of flexibility because I want to make it as easy as possible for you. And then, is it more likely to settle than go to court? That's just a reminder. This, by the way, this was the last module that we did. It's just a reminder that when the stakes are high and the outcome of the case is uncertain, probably it's going to settle out of court. Now, if you're going to choose a past case, then you'll tell me, did it go to the jury or did it get settled out of court? If it's a present or future case, then you'll tell me your opinion. Again, no right answer. Probably it's going to settle, but there could be a special set of circumstances that the business, for reasons of principle or precedent, may want to fight it, may want to take that chance of going to the jury. Part 7 is contracts. This is the common law. Now, when we did the common law, I only focused on one type of contract, which were reward offers or advertising campaigns. Um, Here, any contract, you tell me, what do you think is the single most important contract that the company has? If I'm like, if you pick Facebook, probably I would say maybe the terms of use, right, with the user base. If you pick Pepsi, probably it's going to be the supply agreement Pepsi has with its distributors, right? Or but you can pick whatever contract you think is most important, right? The point there is I want to show you that um, companies are ultimately webs of contracts. Even by the way, if you're having trouble, the employment agreement. What's the most important um, asset a company has? It's the company's employees. So the employment agreement, you could say, is the most important agreement. By the way, if you pick an accounting firm, maybe you have a group of accountants in your group. Probably the client engagement letter is the most important contract. But just to show you, there's a wide variety of agreements that could qualify as contracts, and all companies are built on contracts. That's how, small or large. The next to last part 8 here, in fairness, we haven't talked about this yet. This is the last module. And this class, I'm going to hold it 2 weeks from today. We'll go back to in person. But what I'm going to do is I'll release that module next week, so you have access to my videos and my podcast and my blog posts that I've already done, all of those. So that you'll be able to answer, what I'll tell you. There's 2 models of corporate social responsibility. I'll explain in that module. There, I'll define what a stakeholder is, and how you can tell, what a stakeholder is. And then the example of the ethical dilemma. It's why you want a big company, right? What was in the news lately, and sometimes companies, like, are they contributing to climate change? How did they respond to the Black Lives Matter movement? What about the pandemic? You know what I mean? Did they have a mask mandate, or did they have a different type of policy, for their employees, that a free choice policy. So, you can pick anything, in terms of, and because I want you to say, okay, a company may say they're about corporate social responsibility, but maybe they don't really live up to their own hype. Now, the last part is just a bibliography. Just list any sources, whether it be Wikipedia, the company's own websites, or like news media, like Drudge Report, or MSNBC, whatever. You know what I mean? And here, this is a practical report designed to advance your own career goals and start thinking about, when you work for a company, how do you prepare for an interview, or start thinking about those aspects of a company. We already did the intellectual property part, so I won't ask that here. But contracts, ethics, right? Who is the manager, the CEO of that company? All of those things are super, super important. I don't know what happened there. There's like a blue line. So I'll end the screen share just momentarily. By the way, any citation style, so as long as you're consistent. I don't get share the URL link, or if you want to go fancy, do the MLA style, Modern Language Association, or the Chicago style, or just make up your own. This is not a academic research report. This is a report designed to get you, first of all, to work in a group, because in reality, that's why they structured the class this way. Because in reality, and I can vouch for this, even when I was a practicing attorney, we worked mostly, working on legal projects, and legal cases. And it's true in the business world as well. So this is the one group project, and this will satisfy the requirement that, we at least work in a group once. It's fine if we do it Zoom, online, that's perfectly fine. Just divide up the 9 things among the 3 of you. Now, if you do have any problem with the group members, 3 of you, 3 per group, there shouldn't be any free writing, but you are, let me know if there is any problem, and that I'll deal with it on my end. Or if you're having trouble finding what group you're in, or if you're having trouble, or if you know what group you're in, but nobody is responding, I will, I'll set some guidelines for that tomorrow once I talk to CDL, how it is you find out, first of all, what group you're in. And then if people are not responding, then just let me know for that next week, because people, are just getting the assignment this week. I just posted it Tuesday afternoon. So give me until next Monday. I noticed from what I've checked, already not most, but many of the group leaders have already reached out. But I know, I know there's, it's a large class. There's 300 groups, so there's not uniformity, in terms of getting the ball rolling. That's why I'm going to keep the deadline open until April 15th, and then I'll keep the project open, until the last day of class, April 25. But I am asking for a April 15th submission, so I have time to grade them all. My TAs and we do read all of these projects and we do comment on all of them. And normally, if you get it all done, you can even ask Ms. Vituli, get it all done, boom, we give you full credit. It's only when I notice the students who lose points is either because they submit late or they submit at the last minute and they leave out the ethics section, or they leave out a subsection. They tell me who the CEO is and how much money they're making, but they never address the chief legal officer. That section is worth 30 points. So each of those bullets are 10 points, So as long as you address everything, boom, it's, you get full credit. So the assignment is really designed so that you can control your own grade. Final exam, I think, is not always fair because you may know the material, but what if I ask you something different that maybe you didn't study? You know what I'm saying? Because there's so much in business law, so here you control your own destiny. And, my TAs will vouch, we don't have a curve in here. I want everybody to do well. I want everybody to have a good experience with law and to realize that the law, is in fact, it's a good thing. You know what I mean? It helps, it provides the rules in which the economy operates. And without rules, you would have chaos. So that's what that's all about, and then you can see a company from a legal perspective, and now you have a more wider horizon. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and, dismiss the class. I'll stay on for any questions, comments, or concerns. I see the chat has been really pretty active, so I'm excited about that. I know Ms. Vituli is excellent. She's been responding. So I'll stay on. If you do want to just raise your hand or just, unmute yourself, I'll answer all of your questions, comments, and concerns that you may have that I may not have addressed, Let's see in here. Let's check in here now that I've stopped here. For the question, no, what I'm gonna do, let me just take one more screenshot in here. And you don't have to do anything. There we go. You're good. I'm gonna tabulate. I will add you manually for the extra credit. Yeah. So we're good there. Like I said, I think it's all explanatory. I
had a couple questions about the final project. So I was looking in my group and it didn't show if the team leader was either me or my other two peers. Is there going to be a fix for that soon?
Let me just mute. Somebody unmuted this by accident.
I know.
So just so that nothing embarrassing. Sometimes it happened to me one time when Zoom was a new thing. I had never used Zoom before. I was in a conference and then my wife yelled at me for I forgot to do an errand. And the mic was on. I was muted. Actually, it was a WebEx. It wasn't even Zoom. Zoom automatically mutes you. You know what I mean? If that's the default WebEx, oh my God, of course it's going to be a Microsoft product. And I was so embarrassed. You know what I mean? Oh, professor, could you, mute yourself? So anyways, but anyways, yeah, a great question. So, what was your question again? You reached out to the other members?
No, so I went to check my group whenever the groups got assigned for the project, and I was trying to see who was assigned the team leader role of the group.
Oh yes,
but
well,
it wasn't.
I tell you what. Tell me your group number right now, and I can find out. Since this is now post class time. I'll be more than happy to tell you right now, just so we don't have to do emails and stuff like that.
My group number is 123.
Okay, cool. By the way, can I ask you? Did you have to go? Is there a shortcut? Did you have to go one by one to find your group, or is there a shortcut?
On the web browser version of web courses, all I did was I just went to the groups tab on the left side, and it just shows final project part 2 of 2, my group number. I just click on it and then I can just go to people.
Good. Okay, good. Oh, thank you. Okay, so it automatically, like, I have the instructor modality. That's why I'm seeing like hundreds of these, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
okay, good. So, okay, that's cool. Now I know what to tell the students. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
I don't really know what it looks like for you. Actually, I just realized there's a student modality. Okay, let me go to 123. I'll tell you right now who the designated leader is, and I'd be more than happy if you want to become the leader. You know what I mean? Oh, it's you. It's you. That's why.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. All right.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's why. Yeah. Perfect. And that might be why you were able to see it. So I'm gonna have to ask a student who's not a group leader if they can, like, because case it was super easy. You didn't have to scroll
Okay,
down.
yeah.
Okay, 147. Let me go. Yeah, if anybody has this, I'd be more than happy to go over this now. Oh, and by the way, I won't be able to stay much later just because I have a fundraiser I have to attend for a friend of mine. And so, I won't be able to stay past 7:30, but let me say, but I forgot, I've been meaning to go over the quizzes. If anybody has questions about any of the quizzes that we've taken, you know what I mean? So I will figure out, if it's about any of your quiz grades, you can send us a Gmail, and I will set that up either tomorrow, Friday, or the next Friday. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that because we had that break and then we didn't have the class after the break, I forgot to announce that. Let me go to 147 for the other student here. And 147 is the group leader is, oh, yes, it's Catherine. It's Catherine, it's you, Miss Gallagher. Yes, let's see here. Do we have another one? 39 and 164. So let me do that. I'll do 164 first since I'm closer to 164. So for 164, the group leader is going to be Lauren Cornelison. And for 39, 39 is, let's see here. By the way, if you have emailed me, I think I answered all the emails last night, but this whole day I've been so busy. I forgot to mention I was at an academic conference up until 2 p.m. And then I was prepping for this class, and then I had this section before this section. So I apologize. I haven't been able to respond to emails today, but I will. 39, the group leader is Logan Bragg. And let's see, 80. Let's go to 80. Let me make sure I didn't skip any others. 80, and then we need 195. I'll do 80 first, so I'm closer to 80. 80 is going to be, this is great that we could knock this out now. I'm glad. It's Carloon Benedect. Carloon, Carloune. And 195 is going to be, let's go into there. And it's Andrew Anderson Crow. Is Andrew Anderson, CRO. Crow or Crow. And then 251, let's go there. Let's go there. I'm glad we could knock this out now. This is saving me like already 12 emails, so this is awesome. Brian Avila is the 251. Brian Avila, Avila. And Brian spelled the normal way, Brian, or the more usual way. Fabulous. And I know Miss Vituli is just doing a bang up job with the chat. I wouldn't be able to do this without her. So it's like very cool. One new message. Okay, great. Yeah, no, of course, my pleasure. And again, we're here, this is really for your benefit so that, most of the stuff you're probably going to forget, hey, I forgot a lot of the things, I was a straight A student, but I forgot a lot of the things, you know what I mean? Like if it wasn't, but by doing the project, you'll have something tangible that you can attach to a resume, you know what I mean? And try to get a job there. Wonderful. And I think there's Vituli's responding. So I think we're in good shape. If anybody else has a question, comment, or concern, I'm more than happy. I'm still good on time. If anybody, you can just unmute yourself or use the chat. That's fine as well,
Professor? Okay, so yeah, because I come a little late, so.
Oh, no problem, no problem.
Yeah, so we have 3 group people. This is first group work, right? What happened?
Sorry, I got muted. Yeah, I can find out, I think what you do is just go into people. In fact, let me do a screen share. Let me just, because many other students may have the same question.
Okay.
Here's what you're going to do. I'm going to do a screen share. Oh wait, where did my, sorry about this. I must have closed, my browser. Let me open the browser and then I'll do the screen share. Okay, there we go. So I can show you how you find out how you're in your group. This is good because then it's going to be super easy. What you're going to do is, and hold on, let me move this, the camera here.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw.
Okay, good. Yeah. So just go into here, and what did I do here? I don't want to rename. What you're going to do here is just, it is when you hit people, it's going to default into this. Here's people, but then hit here, and what I'm assuming is it's only going to show you your group. Now I'm the instructor, so it's going to show me all 300 or 270.
Yeah.
Oh, 270 isn't bad. With my 3 TAs, we should be able to grade these. Then that's not as bad as I thought. But there's always a few, people that we have to move around. But yeah, so you should be able to find it that way. Hopefully, only your group will pop up, by following that methodology.
Okay, so after I find our group, so how can I contact with each other?
Oh, good point. So here's what I'll show you right now how you do that. And I'm assuming it's the same way. So am I back in the screen share? No, I'm open this. Let me go into the screen share. What you normally do is, and I have to double check because, the instructor modality is, but what I would do is go into inbox.
Okay.
And then what you're going to do is go pick this course, right? Which is this BUL 3130. And then just begin, when you go to create a new message, just begin typing the person's name. I think one of the group leaders was Brian Avila, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll just start typing his name just as an example. And it should eventually, all the Brians will, and then you'll just scroll down, and there he is. He's the first one, right? Avila, because it's A. So that's the way how I know how to do it. Now, I don't know. I hope that it works for the student version. This is the professor version, but I think that should work. I think they just designed that on purpose. That's the best way to get in touch. Yeah.
Okay, so after we work with each other, so we need one group only submit one.
Yeah, exactly. So the way this works is because it's a group, only one person submits for the whole group. I'm assuming that's the leader, but I think anybody can submit if I'm not mistaken, in the group. So it's only one submission, Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The way this works.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a great thing because then if you forget to submit, but you're, if the lead, but the other person submits and you're covered, you don't have to worry about it, and vice versa. So it's that's the one nice thing about this, and not everybody has to submit.
Okay, I got it. Thank you so much. Okay.
Of course, yeah, no, my pleasure. I'm going to stop this chair just because I don't know if this is, that FERPA, if you're supposed to see, who's in my list, it's like, that's why I use the Gmail, by the way. It's much more easier for me to access, but for you, for internal, for the groups. Okay, other questions, comments, or concerns? Let's see the chat, a little bit of activity. Yes, jump in.
I had a question about the final product itself.
Oh yes,
when it comes to the required page length. So I did see that it said that it's a minimum of 4 pages, maximum of 6, including the cover page and bibliography. So say that we do, like my group, for instance, we get the cover page and the bibliography, but we go for the minimum of the 4 pages and we do one whole page of the like the bulk of the work, but we only reach to like half of the second page. Does that half of the second page count for a second page?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fair question. Yeah. And you'll see my spirit is, like I treat this as a liberal art. Most academics, and I'm an academic, I'm not ashamed of saying that I'm a scholar. I love reading. You see all my books and stuff like that. I like writing papers. But most of my colleagues are really, I don't want to say what I really think, but they're kind of like, anal retentive, about that. But no, yeah, exactly. If you've covered every single thing, you know what I mean, and you can do it in under 4 pages, I'm actually going to give you, I'm actually going to give you a bonus because, wow, it's like that's less for me. That's why I make it 4 to 6 pages. It just because, some people even do more than 6 pages. They get really into it, and I never penalize, you know what I mean? Because it's like, again, that would be, if you want to do more work, you're more than welcome to, but then I have to grade more. That's why ideally, those are targets, and this is very fair. The bibliography, right, is a whole separate page, and the cover page is a whole separate page. That's, it's really a 2-page report, right? I just don't want, that secret to come out so publicly, because then because the idea here is just, what I'm doing here, the pedagogy of it, or the science of it, is that you're applying what you've learned. You're not just memorizing stuff. Memorizing stuff is, a lot of exams are basically what you memorize. And the truth of the matter is, that's the lowest learning. That's the lowest value learning. It's the first thing you're going to forget. The moment you go to the beach and have a couple beers and just hang out, you're going to forget the stuff that you memorize, because you have new things you need to remember in your mind. But with this assignment, you're going to be applying all the things that we've done in each module. You're now applying it to a single company, right? And you're more likely to remember, contracts are always important. Does my company have a chief legal officer? Because if they do, that's an important thing. That's an important resource. What are the main litigation risks and legislation risks of the company? You're seeing the company from a big picture, right? You're not just looking at from myopically from, so it's, we're so fair on that, so it's, the idea is we want to keep these reports short, because we have to grade so many of them, and these we actually do grade. It's not just a question of, did you, if you got it done and it's complete, but we still have to read it to verify. That's why we take so long grading the discussion posts, because it is a big class. But I don't want to, I want people, and by the way, the other important thing here is that you can say you had one writing intensive class in the College of Business, because most of our courses are quantitative in nature. Those, of course, are probably the hardest classes, right? But it's, employers more and more are looking for people that can communicate ideas, especially, writing things down. And while we don't have the skills or the resources here, the time to grade grammar and composition, which is what I would do if this were a smaller class, but we can at least assign assignments and allow you to come, solve difficult legal problems, and where you come to your own conclusion. And then when the Supreme Court does decide a tattoo is copyrightable or not, you're going to remember this class, right? Because eventually the Supreme Court will have to decide that, right? When the Big Cat Public Safety Act, if it does get enacted and is challenged in court, under the Commerce Clause, you're going to remember this class, right? You're going to remember the big thing. So that's why, we're pretty fair. If you get half a page, that counts as, as long as you hit each of those bullets, you notice it's 200 words, I believe, minimum, or whatever. It's, that's a paragraph. That's why we say it's technically, if you do it single spaced, it could easily be under 4 pages, easily.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Have a good night.
Of course, you too. Good night.
Good evening, Professor. A quick question regarding the extra credit for attending these sessions. Just because I haven't done this before. How many points do we get for these sessions, and do we have to do anything?
Because I created extra credit, after I posted the syllabus, so I'll need to update the syllabus. What it is, it's a maximum of, because I think the College of Business Policy is like a professor can award up to 5%. So we had 5 labs. So what I'm doing is, it's basically, if you go to all 5 classes, you'll get 5%. What that basically, so it's 1% for each class. What 5% basically represents, you notice there's like, each, the class is divided into 3 big groups, discussion posts and quizzes, right? Surveys, and then the final project. So the final project is always graded separately, but let's say you missed a survey, or let's say you missed a quiz or a discussion post, right? Or you were late on it, if you have all 5%, then what I'll do is I'll take whatever you had the lowest grade in, or whatever you missed, and award you those points. Now let's say you only went to 1 class or 2 classes, right? Then I'll figure out what the 1 or 2% are worth. I'll give you partial credit, but basically I'll apply those points to where you need it the most. That's what I'll do. Or let's say you just need it to round off. I'll round you off, right? Because 5% is more than, even if you go to 1 class, that's 1%. And I don't know if it's happened to any of you, right? But you got 89.9%, or I think here the B+ starts at 88 or something, 87.8. You're almost there to get the A-, you're almost there to get the A- from the A. Actually, there's no minus in this class, but the to the next higher grade. So even going to 1 class, and today I'm, just to be fair, because I last minute there were some weather issues where I'm at right now. And so although now it looks like it's subsided, so I think that's good. But yeah, thank you for attending. And trust me, I'll always use it in your favor. I'll figure out how I can use it, even if it's just 1%. maybe that's all you need. You know what I mean? Just to round up your grade. And you have the full 5%. That basically counts for a quiz or a survey. You know, when you add it up, when you add up what when you the number of assignments versus the 33%. I'll figure that out.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry I can't give you a more definite thing, but basically I use it to help you out. Where you need those points the most, up to 5%.
I got you.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
Exactly. And Ms. Vituli will vouch that we always give you the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, if you get extra credit, then that's And so come to the last class. You have 2%. You have an extra insurance policy, and trust me, it'll be worth your while. It'll be a fun class where we'll talk about Milton Friedman versus Senator Elizabeth Warren, but the two major visions of corporate social responsibility and business ethics. Anybody else have a question, comment, or concern?
Professor, yes. The extra credit. You took a screenshot of us of the people who attended. That's how you're gonna do the extra credit.
Yes, I took a screenshot, and Ms. Vituli also kept. I took a couple of screenshots because I had 2 screens, and then Ms. Vituli has been, keeping, a master list as well. Now, what I'll do is remember those things that you've been signing if you've come to some of the previous ones. I'll just add that to the master list. Yeah, I'll do that. So yeah, trust me, you will be counted. And if for any reason we do make a mistake, because there's a large class, you know what I mean? The thing about Zoom, you have your records, you know what I mean? You have, I have my screenshots, Ms. Vituli is there, trust me, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had gone. I know you went to Yale, and I just wanted to tell you that the band went to Connecticut. We played against UConn.
Oh, no kidding!
I went to
Did you play against
UConn.
UConn?
Yes, and it was
Hartford.
It was a yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a
Yeah,
very
UConn,
close game and everything. It was crazy.
UConn, it's a big rivalry, right? Because UConn's a public state institution. They're like the UCF of the Northeast, a very big and a very well-respected school. And then you have the elite Yale League group. I didn't know any of this when I got accepted into Yale. I didn't know about University of Connecticut. I didn't even know, what I mean? I soon learned, there was a whole in-state rivalry between the private and then the public institution. And it's funny, in my own private career, or my own personal career, I began by teaching at a private Catholic law school. And then now I'm at a big research public university. So I feel like, you know what I mean? And then I went to a public high school. I didn't go to a religious school up until the 9th grade. And I went to a public high school and a public university, UC Santa Barbara. So I feel lucky I had that mix of a public education and then a private education,
Definitely so. I was just I thought Connecticut was pretty beautiful and everything. I just thought, so beautiful.
Especially in the winter. Yes.
It was very cold when I went up there, and I like the fact that it's between New York and Boston. You got that kind of in the middle.
That's the best part, and it's all connected. It has the best public transportation in the country. Everything from Washington D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Of course, New Haven is on the route to Boston. It's the best public transportation system in the country. You can take a train. They have multiple trains. Because in addition to Amtrak, they have the New Haven Railroad, the Long Island Railroad. It's really to move around and pretty economical. They have for all budgets. They have the first class, train line. They have the regular train line, but even the regular train line is super comfortable. That's the thing I miss the most about the Northeast is the trains. Because I would go to Boston or New York City that was to me the big attraction. I would go every weekend because trust me, there's nothing going on in New Haven. I don't know about Hartford.
No, I was going to Connecticut. It's all beautiful and everything, but I feel like it was barely anything to do.
Yeah, there really isn't much to do. And then the problem is that, at a place like Yale, everybody's focused on their grades and stuff like that. So it wasn't like as many good parties as in UC Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is like, I think, it's like UCF. It's a really fun college. With just a up and coming type of place, and they don't have a football program, so I never got the football experience.
I visited both Yale and Harvard both because I got to go to Boston.
Oh yeah,
definitely. So
definitely. But I will tell you, I was very lucky. Brian Shaw was my classmate at at Santa Barbara, the guy who played for the Lakers and later coached the Denver Nuggets. And we were in the same dorm, and he would always invite me to eat with him, you know, in the Carrillo Hall, where the dining hall was. So I was so lucky to meet such a, you know, good group of people there. And Brian Shaw was super, you know, he was already a superstar in college. He took Santa Barbara to the NCAA champion, March Madness tournament twice. You know what I mean?
I went to. It was such a hostile environment.
Oh yeah, no,
there were
I've
very,
never seen
very
anything
huge
like that.
fans
Santa
of
Barbara
you.
people are laid back. Yeah, Santa Barbara people, like you walk in, nobody asks for your ticket. You know, it's like, I even the Thunderdome. And then the thing about it is, you know, like UF, Connecticut, you know, UCF, when there's a big game, it's pretty intense. Not as intense like you say up there in the Northeast, because there's nothing else to do. Yeah, we have the beach here, you know what I mean? We can hang out. We have good, you know, we have downtown, we have the Corona Cigar Company. We have all these things to do, but over there it's so cold, you know, you don't really want to leave the house, you know, so it's like wonderful. I did get a little notice, my internet connection is unstable. So if I do get disconnected, I do apologize for that. In any case, I do see it 7:29, and I did promise I need to be at this fundraiser by 8 o'clock, and I have to find my my tie and my jacket. I do like talking about this sort of thing because I has wonderful memories living in Connecticut and you know, being so close to New York and Boston, which were that was awesome. That was really awesome. I got to visit, you know, those places quite regularly, and it just expanded my horizons, you know. But anyways, thank you all. Thank you all, you know, for staying on to the very end. And if you do have any other questions, comments, or concerns, you know, use the Gmail. You know, I have been responding at the end of each day. I'm going to take a little break now. I have to go to a fundraiser, so I'll probably respond later tonight or just tomorrow morning when I wake up. I usually wake up pretty early before I go on my morning walk and take my daughter to school. But you know, good luck to all of you. I think you'll notice the class is very fair. Just do the project by the deadline. If you hit up all the things, you're going to be perfectly fine. Ms. Bituli can also, as my former student, she can also attest to all of that. Wonderful. So good night to all. God bless you all as well, and charge on, you know, as we say. Take care. Good luck. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Hopefully in person. Bye-bye. Yes, you're welcome. Oh, let me stop the recording. You know what? I should have stopped the recording earlier.